My husband's secret shattered everything. You won't believe the twist. The scream was building in my chest, threatening to tear me apart. I'd spent almost 20 years building a life, a family, a world with Mark. Then, with a few careless words, a casual whisper in a PTA meeting, it all began to crumble. The foundation was rotten, riddled with secrets I never imagined. I discovered my husband had a secret child. When I confronted him, he told me something even worse. I never thought I'd be the type to write something like this. I've always been the quiet, keep to myself kind of person. Someone who handled things privately. Here I am, laying it all out. Maybe writing this will help me make sense of everything. Or maybe it's just a way to finally get it off my chest. My name is Cassie. I'm 42, been married to Mark for almost 20 years. We have 2 kids together, Aiden, who just turned 17, and Sophie, who's 14. We live in a small town in upstate New York. Nothing flashy, just a regular, small town life. We don't have a lot, but we've always been comfortable enough, or at least I thought we were. The whole thing started innocently enough. I was at a PTA meeting one night, God. That meeting feels like a lifetime ago now. One of the other moms, Sarah, leaned over to me in the middle of some boring talk about fundraising and whispered, "Did you hear about that mechanic over on Lincoln? Supposedly, he's got a kid no one knew about." I tried to play it cool, but my stomach dropped because I knew exactly who she was talking about. Mark's shop was the only one on Lincoln Avenue. I felt my hands go clammy, but I just forced a smile and mumbled, "People love to gossip around here." I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. I kept thinking about all the times Mark was late, saying he had to work late or had an emergency job on a weekend. I told myself it was just a silly rumor. Small town gossip. Mark wasn't the kind of man to do something like that, was he? A few days later, I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until the kids were in bed and I cornered Mark in the living room while he was watching some stupid show. "Mark," I started, trying to keep my voice calm. "Have you heard anything strange lately?" He looked at me, eyebrows raised. "Strange? Like what?" "I don't know. Rumors. I heard someone mention that there's a guy at your shop who might have a kid no one knew about." I tried to sound casual. He chuckled, a forced, uncomfortable sound. "You know how people are. There's nothing to that." The way he avoided my eyes sent a shiver of dread down my spine. Over the next few weeks, the rumors kept popping up, almost like they were following me. Every time I went to the grocery store or the kids' school, it seemed like someone was talking about that mystery child. I started noticing how people looked at me with sympathetic smiles, lingering glances, and whispers. Finally, one night, I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until the kids were at a friend's house, and then I really confronted him. I cornered him in the kitchen while he was fixing himself a sandwich, and I let it all out. "Mark, what's going on? Is there something you're not telling me?" My voice cracked, and I could feel my hands trembling. He set the sandwich down slowly and looked at me with a mix of guilt and fear. "Cassie, I didn't want you to find out like this," he mumbled, his eyes fixed on the counter. I felt like the ground had disappeared from under me. "So it's true," I whispered. "You have a child outside our marriage," he said quickly, finally meeting my eyes. "Cass, I swear I didn't know. It was just one night, and I had no idea she even existed until a few months ago." I could hardly breathe. "And you didn't think to tell me?" he pleaded. "I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to ruin what we have. I thought maybe if I kept it to myself, we could all go on as normal." "Normal," I repeated, my voice rising. "You have a daughter I didn't know about. We've been married almost 20 years. And you've been lying to me this whole time." He shook his head desperately. "I didn't know. Cassie, she only reached out to me a few months ago. Her mother never told me about her, and I thought it was in the past." I stared at him, trying to comprehend his words. "How old is she?" He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing nervously. I felt dizzy. "Her name is Eliza. She wants to meet me." The betrayal hit me like a tidal wave. "So, now you want me to introduce our kids to this child you have with another woman? How am I supposed to explain that to them?" He was silent, his face crumpled. "Cassie, I know this is hard, but she's just a kid who wants to know her family. It's not her fault." I left bitterly, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Not her fault? What about me? What about the fact that you've kept this from me for years?" "I know, and I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say," he said, his voice breaking. I couldn't look at him. I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there alone in the kitchen. The days that followed were a blur. I could hardly function. Every time I looked at Mark, I felt a wave of anger and betrayal that left me breathless. I couldn't believe I had been married to a man who could lie to me like this. Then, just as I was starting to process the idea of Eliza, I got a message on Facebook. It was from a woman named Tara. She introduced herself as Eliza's mother and asked if we could meet. I didn't tell Mark about the message. I felt like I needed to hear her side of the story. I had to know if there was more to this than he was letting on. We met at a coffee shop in town. Tara was a slender woman with tired eyes and a nervous smile. She looked like someone who'd been carrying a heavy burden for a long time. "Cassie," she greeted me, her voice quiet. "Thank you for meeting me." I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to understand why you kept this from us." Tara responded I thought I was doing the right thing. It was a what-time thing. I didn't think he'd want anything to do with a child, and I didn't want to ruin his life or yours. But Eliza grew up not knowing her father, and she started asking questions. I couldn't keep lying to her. I could see the pain in her eyes. She wasn't some villain who tried to destroy my family. She was a woman who made a hard choice. So why now? I was barely holding back tears. Why did she have to come looking for him now? Tara responded, she deserves to know where she came from. But Cass, Tara's face grew tense. There's more. You deserve to know everything. My stomach turned. What do you mean? She hesitated, her hands shaking slightly as she wrapped them around her coffee cup. Eliza isn't the only one. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with regret. There's another child, a son. I didn't know about him until recently, either. He's about 16. Just a little younger than Aiden. The words echoed in my head. Another child. Mark had fathered not one, but 2 children outside of our marriage. You're saying Mark has another son? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Yes, she replied quietly. He's been supporting him financially. He's kept all of this separate. I felt like I was going to be sick. Mark had been living a double life, lying to everyone around him, hiding not just one, but 2 children from me. I need to leave, I said abruptly, standing up and grabbing my purse. I didn't care that my coffee was untouched, but I looked like a woman on the edge, because that's exactly what I was. When I got home, I confronted Mark. I stormed into the house, and he looked up. Cassie, what's going on? He asked, clearly sensing that something was horribly wrong. You lied about everything. He looked at me, mouth open, but no words came out. Don't even try to lie, Mark. I met Tara. She told me everything about Eliza and the other boy. Mark's face crescent. He stumbled back a step, leaning against the counter for support. Cassie, please let me explain. Explain, I shouted, my voice echoing through the house. Explain what, Mark? That you'd been hiding 2 children from me. That you've lied every day for the past 20 years. What exactly is left to explain? He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again, as though he didn't even know where to begin. Finally, he whispered, I was young. Cassie, stupid. I didn't think it would ever come back to haunt me. Oh, it's haunting you now. Believe me, I snapped. Why didn't you tell me? Mark, why didn't you tell me about Eliza? About this other boy? He said, his voice cracking, I thought it was over. Cassie, I thought if I could just keep it to myself, we could still have the life we built. I didn't want to lose you. Cassie, I didn't want to lose our family. You already lost it, Mark, I said, the second you decided to keep this from me. Do you even realize what you've done to them? He shook his head as downcast. I never wanted to hurt you. Cassie, I love you. The words fell hollow, empty, as if he'd said them out of habit. I took a deep breath, trying to keep myself from breaking down. You can't love someone and lie to them like this. You can't love someone and destroy their trust, play with their sense of everything they believed in. He finally looked at me, his face wet with tears. What do you want me to say? I know I have messed up. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But please give me a chance to make it right. Make it right. How exactly do you plan to do that? Do you think a few apologies are going to fix this? That our kids will just accept you kept siblings from them? He looked down, defeated, and didn't respond. I turned away, unable to look at him anymore. I want you to leave, Mark. I need space, and I need to figure out how to explain this to Aiden and Sophie. He looked like he wanted to argue, but he knew better. He simply nodded, grabbing his keys off the counter. Cass, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean much right now, but I am. With that, he walked out, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly alone. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I barely slept, barely ate. I'd sit at the dining room table, staring at my cold coffee, replaying every moment of my marriage. When Aiden and Sophie noticed their father wasn't around, I told them he'd gone to stay with a friend for a while. I needed time to find the right words, the right moment to tell them. One evening, Aiden found me sitting alone in the living room, and he sat down next to me, his face serious. Mom, what's going on? Did something happen to Dad? I took a shaky breath. Aiden, honey, there's something I need to tell you, and this is going to be hard to hear. He looked at me, concerned. Sophie, who had just come downstairs, asked, what is it, Mom? And sat down on the other side of me. I struggled for the right words, but there were none. Before either of you were born, Dad made choices that he kept hidden from all of us. Aiden furrowed his brow and asked, what do you mean? Choices, like, did he do something illegal? I said quickly, he has 2 other children. 2 children he never told us about. You have a sister and a brother. Their faces registered pure shock, then confusion. Sophie whispered, her voice trembling, you're telling us we have siblings? That Dad has been hiding them from us our whole lives. Tears filling my eyes. I replied I didn't know either. Aiden clenched his fist, his face red with fury. How could he do this to us? How could he lie like this? I put a hand on his shoulder, but he shrugged it off, standing up and pacing around the room. I looked up to him. Mom, and he's been lying to us was about something this huge. I know, honey, I whispered, feeling the pain of betrayal all over again. I feel the same way. We sat in silence for a long time, each of us lost in our thoughts. Eventually, Aiden spoke up, his voice bitter. I don't want to see him, Mom. Not right now. Sophie, too, looked down, hurt evident on her young face, and replied, I don't either. In the following weeks, Mark tried to reach out to the kids, but they wouldn't speak to him. They were angry, hurt, and confused. I couldn't blame them. I felt the same way. And as much as I wanted to protect them, I knew they had to go through their own process of dealing with this betrayal. Then, one day, I got another message from Eliza. She'd heard about what happened, that the truth was out, and she wanted to meet her siblings. She wrote a long, heartfelt message explaining how much it would mean to her, how she didn't want to be the reason our family broke apart, even though she knew it wasn't her fault. I struggled with it, wondering if it was too soon to introduce her to Aiden and Sophie. But deep down, I knew she was part of their story, part of their family, whether we wanted it or not. So, after a long talk with Aiden and Sophie, they agreed to meet her. We met at a park, somewhat neutral, away from the prying eyes of anyone who might recognize us. Eliza was waiting for us on a bench. She was a lovely young woman with Mark's dark hair and my kid's eyes. When she saw us, she stood up, her hands fidgeting. Hi, I'm Eliza, she said, her voice soft. Aiden and Sophie looked at her, their faces a mix of curiosity and weariness. Aiden spoke first, his tone guarded. Hi, I'm Aiden, and this is Sophie. Sophie gave a small, shy wave. I know this is weird. I never wanted to hurt anyone, but I just needed to know my family. They sat down, and slowly, as the hours passed, Aiden asked her about her life, about her school, about what it was like growing up without a dad. Sophie shared stories about our family, about silly things Mark would do around the house. We left. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy, but it was real. As the sun set, Aiden turned to me. His expression softened. Maybe this isn't all bad, Mom. Maybe we can still be a family even if it's different. And in that moment, in an unexpected way, we were a different kind of family. One built on truth, even if it came from pain. The kids saw him occasionally, but they've lost respect for him, and he knew it. I filed for divorce, and he moved to a different town, trying to piece together his own life. As for us, we grew stronger, closer. Eliza became part of our lives. Together, we weathered the storm. In the end, betrayal can shatter everything, but if you're willing to face it, if you're brave enough to build again, it can also set you free. And now, for the first time in a long time, I feel like we're finally free. So tell me, Reddit, after hearing everything, do you think I handled this situation correctly? Was I too harsh on Mark, or was my reaction justified? I'm really struggling to process everything, and I would appreciate any honest opinions or advice you might have.